that is they say, well, it's not about them, it's about what they're doing for you. I'm sorry, but, if I'm learning to play golf, I want one of two things. I want either a guy that's trained some great golfers and has a lot of experience as a trained teacher, or I want a guy that's a great golfer. I don't want a guy that is saying he knows about it because he's a long-term marketing guy who now says he understands social. So I think that kind of answers that question.
Okay, so when you look at organizations that are using social now, which ones do you look at and say, yeah, they're the ones that really get it, they're ahead of everybody else at the moment, they're the best in the field? What do you think of when you think of those companies?
Well, it changes regularly. I would say for a long time that Kodak really got it, and the primary reason for that was Jeffrey Hazlett, who was their chief marketing officer and has become somewhat of a social media marketing rock star of his own right. He left Kodak and now he has his own consulting firm. Kodak was really getting it. Jeffrey, as a CMO, was answering tweets, was very involved. I think Barry Judge has done great things with Best Buy. And their tweet force is unbelievable, and what they do within their stores and outside. So I think they really get it. And then, anybody who's heard me speak before will just smile because I say this all the time, but I really believe JetBlue gets it. And not only do I believe JetBlue really gets it, I think the proof is in the pudding, and it's not just in what they're doing every day right now, but I was just in a meeting yesterday, and actually Jeff Hazlett was running this meeting that I was involved in yesterday. And what one of the people made a comment about, because there were a lot of interaction that we were doing with tables and questions that we were being asked, was that it's very hard for a company to rebuild their reputation. And even with social. And social in some ways, some people were making the remark they felt social can even make it harder because negative spreads so fast. Well, I'm going to raise my hand right now, and I'm going to say, I believe that social is actually better on the positive side. I believe people share things more often when it's good than when it's bad. I believe advocates are more likely to spread a positive message than detractors are to spread a negative message. I think that you're much more happy telling your friends that you bought a great TV and they should go and get it because it's, oh my God, it's great cost and it's a great thing than to tell people, oh, my TV sucks. That's my opinion. So, what JetBlue has done is remarkable. First of all, we all know JetBlue went through this horrible time in their recent past where they were having all these mechanical problems. They were leaving people stuck on the runway. Well, I got to tell you, you don't hear much talk about it anymore. People are now saying, and I tweet about JetBlue a lot, and when I tweet about Delta, I get a lot of people jumping in going, yeah, Delta sucks. Like, oh my God, I hate flying Delta. Whereas when I say when I say good things about them, it doesn't get shared a lot. Not that I say a lot of good about Delta, I'll be honest with you here, but when I do, and not only that, I don't hear from Delta. But when I tweet about JetBlue, I can't tell you how many people jump in. Or when I tweet about another airline, people jump in and will say to me, oh, you should check out JetBlue. And by the way, in the digital community, you would think JetBlue people wouldn't be happy because they don't have Wi-Fi on board yet. And they won't until 2012. So a lot of people are upset about that, but you know what? I very rarely hear people complaining because they're pleased with the experience. Now, why do I think JetBlue does such a great job? Probably an important question. Because JetBlue uses social to interact, to engage, and they use it across silos within their organization to make them better, not for themselves, but for the consumer. Now, there's a lot of uses for social to make you better for yourself. But in the end, most organizations, if they make themselves better for themselves, it's better for the consumer. So if you're sourcing goods at better prices, if you're running your business an ethical way, or even more importantly, if you want people to buy more product and you're saving money, you might cut prices. So you're helping people there. If you're finding better suppliers, if you're finding better partners, the people that deliver, if Amazon finds a better delivery service, that's better for Amazon. So yes, it might be better for Amazon. That's better for Amazon's customers and for Amazon. So what JetBlue is doing is JetBlue listens. Now, I'll give you a quick story so you can understand how this happens. But in 2010, I was on a JetBlue flight on my way to South by Southwest, which is a big social media conference in Austin, Texas. And I was on one of the JetBlue flights that got stalled on the runway. Just stuck. We were there for over 2 hours at this point. Nobody could tell us what was going on. I finally opened my laptop, even though we were technically on the runway and not supposed to be doing that. And I started tweeting at JetBlue. Love you guys, but what's going on today? Stuck on the runway. Within 30 seconds, I heard back from someone on JetBlue. Now remember, this is not a cosmetics company like Elf, who, number one, is how bad can a complaint be? And this is not a company like Elf, again, that isn't getting, I mean, sure, we got a few hundred tweets. These guys have thousands of flights every day. So, and people are mostly saying negative things. My flight's delayed, my bag got ruined, the stewardess isn't nice, whatever it happens to be. Flight attendant, excuse me. So, I tweet this out, I immediately get an answer, sorry for your problem. Okay, they kept it very limited at first. They didn't want to give me a lot of information, but they wanted to interact with me because they have learned, like you and I have probably learned just in our daily lives, that when people answer you and listen to you, you feel better. How many times have you been at the supermarket, you're upset about something, you complain, they don't fix it, but they go, I understand, that makes sense. You feel better. It disengages you from the conversation, and it makes you feel like somebody's listening. So, but I wasn't satisfied at that. I said, listen, we've been sitting on the runway, what's going on? I'm sorry to hear that, we've had some delays today. I kept pushing. Finally, I was told that our bags were on the flight to New Orleans, and their bags were on our flight. Number one is I felt like, okay, now I understand. Number two, I told everybody on the plane, and I was a hero because I'm the guy that everybody found out what's going on. But what happened next? Being a guy that didn't really understand the logistics of the airline industry, I said, so? Put them on our plane. What's so tough? Send the guy to get them. They didn't just leave it at that. They explained to me what the problem was, what the logistics were, how difficult it is to do that. And then, now I realized I was kind of at the end of this rope. They said, listen, we're doing our best to get this solved as soon as possible. So I started having some fun with them. And I said, how about free drinks for everyone on the plane? And at first they quoted me, the regulation, they can't serve drinks while we're on the ground. And I said, well, I don't want them now. Give them to us when we're in the air. I said, we're all going to be late for our parties at South by Southwest. We're not going to get until after midnight. Let us have a party here. They kept explaining to me why they couldn't do it, and we could ask the flight attendants in flight. But finally, somebody stepped up from JetBlue and said, how about free movies for everybody on the flight? I said, deal. Because I recognized they were working with me. Mm-hmm. Now, a few minutes later, we take off. There is no Wi-Fi in a JetBlue, so I wait till we land. The first thing I do when we land is I send out a tweet to JetBlue saying, kudos at JetBlue. You couldn't solve my problem, but you engaged me. Thank you. So, 2 months later, ends right there. 2 months later, I'm on a panel at the CMO Club Summit, speaking about brands and engagement and interaction via social. And on the panel is Morgan Johnson, the head of communications for JetBlue, and Jamie Punishill, who at the time was running social for Citibank. And part of the discussion from Jeff Roars, who was running the panel, who was the moderator from Exact Target, was, JetBlue and Citibank have a much more difficult time because they have issues, they have corporate mandates, they're in the airline industry, they're in the financing industry, there are things they can and can't say, and most of the time they can't solve problems. So, we were talking about the fact that I was in cosmetics, it's an aspirational product, women love it, it was much easier for me. And during the course of this, and I had just met Morgan Johnson 5 minutes before the panel, so I didn't say a word about my situation when I was on the plane 2 months ago. I said, Morgan, I gotta give you guys at JetBlue credit, because even with the difficulty of the questions you have to answer, you actively interact and engage. And, kudos to you. And when I said the word kudos, it was like a light went off in his head, and he starts looking at me. And he just got silent all of a sudden. He starts shaking his finger, and he says, wait a second. You're at Ted Rubin. You're the guy on the plane to Austin. And this is in front of a room of 150 CMOs of companies that would do anywhere from $5 million to $50 billion. And they're all listening to this. And I go, yeah. He goes, you're the guy that was tweeting about it with the drinks. And I go, how do you know? He goes, because I was the guy tweeting with you. What does that tell you? The head of communications at JetBlue was tweeting with me. Why, you might ask? Well, because they have a system that monitors what's going on, and they have an escalation policy. And if they get somebody who, number one, is upset, but number two is they look at how many followers you have, they look at your clout score, all this goes into a dashboard for them. And when there's somebody they feel really needs to be handled by upper management, it gets escalated up there. So Morgan is very often, almost every day, involved in conversations with consumers. So here's a company that really gets it. They built a loyal advocate after that. They built a very influential